This is Reality Dispatch, written by Jim Mins.
The canvas was clean, which was surprising. Vincent had taken to accessing the wash basins on a fortnightly basis, and sometimes not at all. When the package from Theo arrived, he was hesitant to place his greasy fingertips on the edges or even carry it under his arm. Yet when he made it to the fields and placed it on the wooden A-frame, he took 3 steps back and looked over the horizon to see a perfect white rectangle. The nuns and the doctors were meticulous of their hygiene. They wouldn't dare soil the materials when presenting it to Vincent, as it had arrived via post. Anything that was soiled would be the fault of Vincent's alone. Most artists would throw out a canvas that had been desecrated, even if nothing had been crafted on top of it yet. Not Vincent. He would paint on charred and soiled bedsheet. But a white canvas offered limitless potential for the entity, or whatever took over the execution of his physical form, when it used him to craft that which could not be spoken, heard, explained, or described. He liked to stand there and see the blank canvas for what it was, what it could hold. He thought for a minute that perhaps he shouldn't desecrate this one. I will not be desecrating it. The entity will be creating with it, he reminded himself. But be warned, perhaps this one will break me. Maybe this one is cursed. He spoke to the air. The trees stood quiet, and the atmosphere provided perfect tranquility. This was in contrast to the volcano of emotions that rampaged through his head. He reminded himself of his predicament, his anger, his violence. He pressed his palm to the wound on the side of his head where his ear once was attached. He pressed in deep to feel the pain as it seared through his skull, down his neck, and along his nerve endings. The healing was working, and the wound was numbing. This prompted him to push harder if he was to get a jolt like the ones he was experiencing in days prior. He realized he was face down in the tall grass. The focus on his wound had caused him to lose his footing. He hadn't realized. He stood once more to observe the glimmering canvas as it rested on the edge of a wheat field. The trees beyond swaying, yet there was no wind. The sky bending as if his eyes acted under the influence. A subtle hallucination. He was stone-cold sober. There was the welcome feeling of the disorientation that pervaded the landscape. He relished its appearance whenever he engaged in his work. He observed, sometimes with his eyes closed, this motion of things that should not bend and tilt. But when they did, he felt in control. The fire in his mind subsided. He was able to compose his hands, stop them from shaking, and allow the voice of the beyond to take over. He walked over to the canvas, compelled to let the other side be in control. That's what he referred to it as, the other side, or sometimes the entity. It's the entity, he says to you, the reader or listener, confirming the narrator's descriptions. The chaos of his body evident with the dried bloodstains on his hands and exposed feet. The fire in his mind echoing violence and chaos. The two presented themselves as anarchy. Yet with a brush in hand, they quietened. His arm was raised with the paint on the stick, and he proceeded to make stroke after stroke after stroke, careless and meticulous. Or the entity did, using his limbs to create a work of precision, organized murkiness, intention where there was none evident. He allowed his body to be a vessel for another worldly presence to take over and present life as it could have been, as it might have been, as it may be. There were no answers, as there are no answers in emotions. You just feel. That's all there is, he said out loud as his hands stroked the edges with a midnight blue. You eat something, and this creates a sensation in you, and you want that feeling again and again. The more appetizing the food, the more you crave that feeling. It is these feelings that we crave. No one knows why we crave these good things. The body just likes them. The brain likes them. The brain rewards us for this indulgence. He continued to throw paint on the canvas, occasionally taking steps back to observe what was presented before him, but often not, avoiding the temptation to do so, for the acceptance of this task would bring attention to it and thus break the stronghold whatever otherworldly force had over him. He didn't want the creator, the entity, or whomever was in control to let go. He lived for the composure his work gave to his senses. Greens thrust leaves into shapes and contours that the world had never felt but had always sought. Blacks gave depth and perspective. Yellows brought life and intrigue and hope. Red gave an account to the balance that must be observed, but not dominated. The balance that our life is chaotic, and the bad must be met with the good. The good can be consumed in moderation with the bad, but the goal must always be balance. The calmness swept over him like the breeze of the leaves of the trees that bent to the will of his wrists. He saw the sky and the birds and the grass move in unison. Unison of the chaos and the calmness was his balance. Balance was his God. "That's what this brings me," he said. Balance. The brushes and strokes were becoming fewer and farther. He could sense the voice of the canvas coming to a close. It had said all that needed to be said. The fire in his mind was being relit. Chaos would take hold once more and provide him with a sleepless night, and the pain in his ear would remind him of the darker feelings that had a grasp of him. He embraced the last of the strokes before the entity let go. "Goodbye, balance," he said to his painting. "Until next we meet."
For more stories of fact-based fiction, head to jimmins.substack.com.